So welcome to Policing TV again with retired Inspector Lance Valcour from the Ottawa, formerly of the Ottawa Police Service. Lance, in our first video, we talked about your career. You provided the early indication to the reason it was that you have written a book very soon to be published. If only they knew a cop's journey with addiction and mental health. And just recapping, part of the preface for the book talks of strength, courage, love, a story about how a woman faced with immense challenges in her relationship found the inner strength and courage to stand up and say, no more, this ends today. So take us through what was presumably towards the back end of your policing career. That's the point that you and your wife began to recognize these challenges and began to tackle.
Yeah, no, in fact, it was kind of mid-career. The very early part, as I started to say in the previous section, where these chains start to get added to any first responder, any member of the military, hospital workers, people that deal with stress, right? Those chains got heavier and heavier and heavier, except I didn't know it, right? I thought I was fine. I'm being successful. I was, in fact, at the stage where she said those words to me. I had recently been promoted. I was a staff sergeant then, in charge of our break and enter squad, seen as quite successful, kind of on an upward trending pattern. And I thought, life's pretty good. And then she utters those words. And it's because I had become, frankly, a different person, not the little boy that grew up in the small little village on the St. Lawrence River, but an entirely different person, an angry person, a person who often drank too much. And that's when she said that. And quite frankly, when she said it, I thought, like, this is BS. Like, what are you talking? Like, look at me. Like, look at me. I'm successful. Bernard, you may have heard this. It's not really a funny joke, but there's a saying. People, how do you tell when an alcoholic is lying? And the answer is when they move their lips. And that was me. That everything that I was doing, I mean, outwardly successful, inwardly at home, not so much. So thankfully, she said those words, and then that led to eventually getting help.
So this was something that at the stage immediately before her mentioning this, what's her name?
My wife's name is Lise. Lise.
So at the point when Lise first mentioned it, wasn't something at that point that you recognized in yourself. And also probably not something that your colleagues recognized either. Is that correct?
Well, that's why the title of the book is If They Only Knew, right? Because we're very good. We, people who struggle with these issues, any type of mental health issues, we're very good at hiding them. In large part because of the culture. And, we'll talk about in the next session, the next segment, we're going to talk about some of the challenges. And one of those major challenges is mental health challenges in public safety, right? Because had I gone, or had she phoned my boss at the Ottawa Police and said, hey, this guy's got a problem, then effectively my career would have been over, right? And so I hid it, and I hid it very well. And that's the people watching this. There are many, 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 many of them who have done that and are doing that today.
So so Lise broached this with you. How did you take that? How did you then start to deal with that together?
Well, I took it very badly, frankly. But what I did is essentially at that stage to get her off my back was, okay, listen, okay, fine. Just give me a week. She essentially told me to leave, right? Give me a week. I was taking university courses at the time. I'll cancel those. I'll phone what we call our employee assistant program and kind of see what I can do. 100% honesty here and transparency. All of that was bullshit. I was saying it just to get her off my back, right? I figured if I could kind of get her to stop talking about this for a week or two, we'd be fine again. But I did. I phoned the EAP. I went and saw Dr. Joe down the street, 2 days later, and talked to him for 50 minutes about how Lise didn't understand me, and Lise this, and Lise that, and Lise this, and Lise that. And at the end of the 50 minutes, he said, okay, Lance, I'll come back next week, and I want you to go to AA because you're a dry drunk. I walked out of there dumbfounded. Like, did he not understand a word I said? This is not a Lance problem. This is a Lise problem. What's wrong with this guy? That's what I was thinking. Fortunately, I had a good friend and partner who was in the program, encouraged me to come to a meeting, and finally the dime dropped. It was like, shit. It's not her. It's me, right? Now that's the very short version of that story.
There may be an expression there that not everybody is familiar with. I think you said dry drunk.
Yes.
And it's not actually an expression that I've heard before. I feel I know what it means. But for those that are like me, that haven't heard that expression before, can you just elaborate on it to make sure that we're on the same page on this?
Sure. So actually, I took the bus home and I went and knocked on the door of my ex-partner who was in the program. He was the first auto police officer to come out and publicly help people, right? And his name is Gary. Gary, what's a dry drunk? Because I had no idea what he was talking about. I hadn't had a drink in a year. How could alcohol be my issue, right? So he kind of chuckled because he knew. And he said, so essentially a dry drunk is a person who isn't drinking anymore, but still portrays all the same symptoms and problems, like the anger and the frustration and the, like all that what they call king baby eye, all these other things, right? It's just all rolled up, but I'm just not actively drinking. That's what a dry drunk is.
So you spoke to Gary, then it sounds like you accepted the truth in what Lise was putting to you. And then how, still, if I understand correctly, not sharing this with your colleagues. So you're dealing with this away from work. Is that right?
Exactly. So I started to get some help, professional help, which I urge anyone. The two groups that helped us the most in all this was Lise, unbeknownst to me. She had been going to what's called Al-Anon, which is the kind of the sister organization to AA, for a long period of time, and that's where she learned that had been what's called enabling me. She was enabling me by allowing me to continue to behave in this way. So that's where she got that education, and then finally said enough is enough. And then for me, it was the AA program. But quite honestly, AA in itself is fantastic. But had I only done AA and not sought professional help, then I don't think, for me at least, that wouldn't have been enough.
So this is a combination of factors, and that will be set out in the book
Yes.
that you have written. There's quite a journey in that, which on this occasion we most certainly will not be able to go into in detail, but it will be and is set out in the book itself. Now, if we then move through that, this is how long before you what in the UK would be described as handing in your warrant card. So how long before you completed your police service did Lise first say to you that there is a problem here?
Right. So we were married in 1985, and this was 1996, and I retired in 2010. And when I retired in 2010, I was, it sounds like I'm kind of full of myself here, but I was fairly well known around the world in interoperability circles and traveling and doing all these things. And I would say probably less than 10 people knew.
So some 15 years before you completed your service was the point at which you with Lisa's encouragement and support, significant support, I imagine, you started to address this. And we've talked earlier on in the earlier video about your successful career. Fewer than 10 people aware of what it was that you and Lise together were going through. If we then move forward to the completion of your policing career, did you always feel at the latter part of that career that you were going to write this book, or was that something that came about subsequently? Again, the name of the book, if they only knew, a cop's journey with addiction and mental health. Did you always know you were eventually going to write this, or is this something that happened subsequent to your completing the police service?
No, I had no idea that I would ever open up in that way and write the book. How it came to be was many years after. It's actually around 2020, 2019, 2020. COVID had hit, and I had, we were essentially isolated. And I thought, you know what, it would be good to get this all on paper, in part for myself, in part as a kind of a catharsis to kind of go through that, in part for Lise and I, and in large part for 3 now adult children. There is, and again, I can't show the actual evidence, but I have been told over my time in AA that children of alcoholics have a very large possibility of also having similar issues. So a part of this was for them. They knew, we were very open about all this with our children as they grew up, but I wanted them to know the whole story. And so I wrote it really for our family. And I wasn't actually going to publish it until I was invited to speak at a conference in Eastern Canada about 1.5 years ago. And I said, listen, what would you think if I was to kind of tell this story? Because, I've spoken about the story in AA meetings, but everybody in the room is in AA. So it's like normal, right? But speaking publicly about it is an entirely different thing. And they loved the idea. I did. It was very hard to share that. And the feedback that I got universally from, the 200 and some people in the room was, please publish the book. And that was 5 years ago, right? Or when I started to write the book 5 years ago, it's now, and from the point of deciding, okay, I'm going to do it, it's been 1.5 years getting to this stage.
And it's worth saying that your career, your successful career, didn't end when you left the police. You've had a successful career since then, as an advisor in a number of ways to policing. So, so much more. Again, Lance, we could explore all this, but what I do want to do in drawing this second video to a close is just to give you the opportunity to mention the steps that those who recognise in themselves, or maybe a partner of somebody in policing who recognises Lise's experience, what steps would you encourage them to take in order to address what you and Lise had carried for a number of years?
Then first and foremost, I would say if you're the family member, go get your own help. If you don't feel that you're able to share that you're getting help with your partner, then don't share. You need to look after yourself. I use the analogy they call alcoholics a selfish disease, right? And it is to a certain degree in the sense that I was a lifeguard, as I said earlier. One of the first things you learn as a lifeguard is if someone's drowning, you don't go out and drown with them. You swim out, you get to a safe distance, and you offer assistance, but only one person is drowning here today, potentially, and it's not going to be me. So if you're drowning in this, then go get help. And for the person who is the active alcoholic or dealing with drug addiction or whatever it might be, it's the mental health issues, then get help. In the book, I talk about where I was sitting on the stairs with my gun about to end my life. So that's as severe as our situation was. And Lise sat beside me and talked me out of it. So no matter how bad things are, get help, because there is help in Canada. I'm very proud to say that the majority of the proceeds from the book will be going to support 3 fantastic Canadian charities: Canada Beyond the Blue, the Serenity Renewal in Ottawa, and the Badge of Courage.
And I know that there are many charities elsewhere, whether it be in Europe, Australasia, elsewhere in North America, that do offer these specific services to those in prison. Lance, I'm going to draw this second part of our conversation to a close now. We'll come back shortly and take a look away from these specific personal and family challenges that we've been talking about, and we'll look at policing. So, with an acknowledgement, Lance, that sharing these matters, it must be challenging. I do hope that those who recognise when watching this that they need some help themselves, that what you've been speaking about will help them to take those first and subsequent steps. So for the time being, Lance, thank you very much indeed.